In a world where humans and vampires coexisted in a kind of fragile harmony, there lived a small group of kind vampires. They sought peace and quiet, feeding only on living energy, without resorting to murder. They hid their true nature to avoid prejudice and fear from people. One day, in the dark corners of the city, where kind vampires usually did not dare to climb, a group of ruthless vampire hunters tracked them down. These hunters were captured by a thirst for revenge, as one of them lost a loved one as a result of an attack by an evil vampire several years ago. They attacked the defenseless good vampires, destroying their secluded hideout. After capturing them, the hunters subjected the vampires to severe torture and changed their nature. Through dark rites and the use of magic, the good vampires, whose hearts used to beat in the rhythm of justice, became enslaved by the sinister thirst for blood and manipulations of hunters. Now, transformed into bloodthirsty creatures, they were freed from captivity and went out into the night to satisfy their new thirst. They became shadows, preying on those who had once been their peers. Their once kind eyes now flashing with a predatory light. However, there was still a spark of humanity in the depths of their souls. Over time, the sinister good vampires began to realize their new state. Despite the dark thirst, there was still a shard of the old kindness and mercy in their hearts. They understood that their new nature had brought them only destruction and pain, and that returning to the bright side would be the only way to heal. At this time, a mysterious figure appeared in the city, a wandering magician named Elias, known for his abilities to heal and solve dark mysteries. After learning about the curse that befell the good vampires, Elias decided to explore the possibility of saving them. He went to the border territories where these shadowy creatures were hiding, and began his mysterious ritual, invoking the powers of ancient magic. At the moment when the dark good vampires rose to the surface to hunt in the dark night, Elias began their rite of liberation. However, as events unfolded, it became clear that healing was not so easy. The vampires, consumed by the dark force, were not going to give up their new appearance so easily. Elias realized that in order to be completely saved, they need to go through the heart of darkness and find the lost humanity in the very depths of their soul. Thus, there is a long and dangerous path ahead for the good vampires, leading through dark forests, confusing caves, and forgotten sanctuaries, where they will face trials that go far beyond their former lives. The journey of the good vampires, led by Elias, into the dark depths of their own souls was like a guiding lesson through the labyrinths of the past. The nights were filled with the sounds of their quiet footsteps, trembling from the oppressive atmosphere of the dark world. In the gloom, their eyes sparkled with the dim light that still remained from their human days. With each step towards the heart of darkness, the vampires faced the ghosts of their past, heightened fears and losses that led to their curse. They were going through dreams and memories that they encountered in the process of their dark transformation. The forces of darkness tempted them, trying to force them to abandon the idea of salvation. Along the way, Elias found himself more and more involved in their tragic fate. He saw how kind vampires suffered from internal conflict, and their eyes showed signs of the last spark of humanity that remained in their souls. The magician felt that he should be like a pastor leading his sheep to the light. But the forces of darkness did not leave them alone. They faced the embodiment of their worst fears and dark images created by their own psyche. Elias understood that only the true power of faith and the desire for restoration could overcome this obstacle. Meanwhile, in the darkest corners of the city, the vampire hunters, unaware of their transformation, strenuously continued their extermination mission. Weaving a network of lies and hoaxes, they intended to get rid of vampires, viewing them as evil creatures unaware that their actions only intensified the darkness in which they now found themselves, amid the shadows and darkness. Where the good vampires and Elias continued their journey to healing, the clash with the past became more and more unpredictable. In caves steeped in magic and ominous whispers, they discovered ancient artifacts that most deeply deserved fearful attention. Elias mastered ancient spells and rituals, turning to forgotten gods and entities of darkness to unravel the mysteries contained in the curse of the good vampires. He felt that with every step his own powers were being tested, causing dark temptations in himself. On the other hand, the good vampires, increasingly aware of their inner struggle, began to gain control over their dark instincts. They found the strength to resist the temptations of darkness and instead turned to their humanity, trying to restore their former state. However, their path was hampered not only by internal storms, but also by external threats. Vampire hunters, deceived by the dark forces, raised their campaign in the city. Every step they took was approaching a fateful clash with the good vampires, Elias, and the forces of darkness that ruled over them. The great timer of the ominous prophecy began to count down its clock, pointing to the inevitable moment of truth that will determine the fate of all participants. In this saga, unanswered questions and conflicts without resolution created a spiral of tension that only intensified with each new step into the unknown. The fate of the good vampires, Elias, and the city as a whole hung in the balance. As the dark forces in the city intensified their impact, Elias plunged deeper into the magical world that embraced the good vampires. There was a gleam of determination in his eyes, but the fear of failure also sparkled in his gaze. Time dragged on like glue, and every moment was filled with a mystery that eluded his understanding. Good vampires, faced with inner demons and memories, found unusual allies in this spiritual struggle. They shared their darkest moments and secret desires among themselves, striving to unite inner light and darkness. The forces of darkness opposed this association, appearing in the form of mystical barriers and terrible visions that inflamed their doubts. While the battle was unfolding at the soul level, the vampire hunters in the city continued their remarkable campaign. Their false testimonies and clever traps exposed the vampires to an increasingly close environment. Eternal battles with hunters created new wounds in the already parched souls of good vampires. Elias, in his quest to unravel the tangle of the curse, found himself getting closer to the moment when his personal dark fears and secrets began to rise to the surface. Under the pressure of healing magic, the forces hidden deep inside him began to awaken, revealing ancient secrets and otherworldly forces. The fate of the Eternal City, the good vampires, and Elias were now intertwined in an inexplicable nodal network supported by dark temptations, sacrifices, and hopes. Under the shadow of eternal night and the thunderstorm that hung over them, the great drama developed, and every decision made by the heroes was weighed on the scales of eternal balance. The fate of the Eternal City hung in the balance, like a shadow enveloping each of its inhabitants. In the end, the good vampires, who had endured a battle with themselves and the darkness within themselves, were on the verge of assuming their true form. They were standing in front of Elias, who, succumbing to the temptation of dark forces, turned into something extracted from the depths of antiquity. Vampire hunters, in pursuit of revenge, have invaded the very heart of the city. Their ancient rituals and witchcraft merged with the wave of cold night, filling the streets with deathly darkness. The good vampires became the target of their vengeful arrows, and the sounds of battle threatened to engulf the entire city in chaos and fear. At the very climax, when the collision became inevitable, Elias raised his staff into the air, filling it with magical energy that shot through the night sky like lightning. The darkness became denser, and the ground trembled under the feet of everyone present. The good vampires, looking up to heaven, saw their former savior turning into an instrument of their evil. Elias, burned by forces coming out of the darkest depths of his soul, opened his sleeves, releasing jets of black magic that began to absorb their light and humanity. At that moment, the forces of darkness and light converged in a bloody battle. Whirlwinds of magic soared to the heavens, and the cries of struggle faded into a whirlwind of fear and destruction. The city, mired in chaos, seemed to rise from the depths of hell. That end came when the last scream died away, and the last echoes of the magical storm died away. The city was plunged into deathly silence. The good vampires, stripped of their humanity, became eternal shadows, and their bright souls were swallowed up by darkness. The vampire hunters, tired and exhausted, surveyed their victory in the ruins. But in the darkness that rose from the broken city, something unknown awoke. The forces of darkness released from Elias began to stir restlessly, creating a new vortex of hatred and destruction. Thus ended the eternal city, cursed and torn apart by the war of light and darkness. All that was left was a dead void in which the shadows of lost souls spread. Fate has made its circle, and now this story has become only an echo of the eternal night, where the light disappeared in the embrace of darkness.